Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supergirl, as well as the latest episode of The Walking Dead. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I created a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Supergirl, you can skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of The Walking Dead. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Supergirl. So, a lot of interesting things went down in this episode. It's that situation that it's the Jimmy and Lena situation, because Lena kind of feels like she kind of represents where everyone kind of, well, typically most people who are pro-alien kind of feel like Jimmy's perspective of like, Jimmy wants to listen to the Children of Liberty just because it's like these are people that he feels like he can talk down, but Lena's kind of like, don't do that, especially because they dropped your manifesto, and it's, you know, they kind of made it clear that they're going to get more and more violent when it comes to this whole alien thing. And it's a subject that kind of leaves you a little conflicted. I kind of lean more towards the Lena aspect, but it's like I can't understand where Jimmy's coming from, because he's like, these are just people who are scared. They can be brought back from the edge. These aren't people who are just 100% filled with hate. They're scared and they're letting that control them. And so if you lead them down the right path, then they can back away from all this. All of this can stop so it doesn't escalate into what everyone's thinking is going to turn into a full-blown civil war, you know? So I don't know, like I said, personally, I feel like I lean more towards Lena's perspective on the situation, but it does bring up a lot of interesting things in the sense of like, Lena is kind of pushing more so like, you know, all the problem can be solved by putting humans on the same playing field as aliens. It's like, yeah, but it's like humans are already capable. There are examples like Alex and Jimmy, but at the same time, aside from all that, it's like they will still never be as strong as someone like Supergirl, for example. But it's like our technology could allow us to do that. But, you know, Lena was like, what if there was a situation where we could potentially give them the strength, the power to do that? Obviously, she's referencing the Heron without actually bringing it up, because it'd be a whole issue all on its own if anyone found out, wait, you have that? What? Wait, so what have you been doing with that whole thing, which I'll kind of get to that in a second. Which I'm assuming that's connected to Nia. Which, that's why I'm wondering what Nia's whole situation is. Really quickly, we bring up the fact is, like, Nia keeps lying and saying, like, oh, she has narcolepsy. But the fact is, you could tell she was lying immediately because she couldn't think of the word. And then later on, when Kara's like, oh, yeah, my mom could, you know, has doctor friends. And her mom is like, oh, yeah, like, I know a doctor who could see you, like, next week. She's like, no, I already know a doctor. I was like, oh, who is it? I probably know them. She was lying by the seat of her pants. So it's like, okay, so she's obviously lying, but why? So it must be a situation of she must have some illness or something, and she's afraid to talk to anyone about it. Maybe it's like talking about it makes it real, or maybe she's just going through a personal struggle right now that she's not really talking about. Because I just, like, it makes you wonder, because it's like she's falling asleep like that, so it must be like, maybe it's something she's taking, like maybe she's on a medication or something for her illness, and it makes her sleepy, but she's not trying to let anyone know. Because really, this hasn't really, I mean, I guess it's come up enough that Jimmy has pointed it out, be like, oh yeah, you're good at your job when you're not sleeping. So I'm guessing this isn't the first time, it's probably the first time Kara's seen her sleeping, but Jimmy's probably caught her multiple times, so there's that. But I'm like, because I already know, like I said, it's kind of spoilers, but Nia becomes a hero in this show, because I brought that up before. Like, she's kind of a Supergirl TV show specific hero, like original, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So I'm guessing the Heron is kind of how that happens, but it leads to an interesting conversation, because it's like the last thing you want is evil people running around with superpowers. And Lena's like, well, we won't give evil people power. It's like, well, how do you determine that? Like, who's going to be the one that decides, oh, you're evil, you don't get you don't get powers? And it's like, that's you kind of playing God. At the same time, that's going to cause issues all on its own, because people are like, why does he get powers and I don't? So that's going to cause an issue all on its own. Then that's going to lead to people most likely trying to steal stuff to gain powers. And it's like, I mean, because we've seen what people can do with powers. Hence, metahumans in the Flash. Like, they have powers and they kind of do criminal stuff just because of their person. Because, I mean, I guess that's the whole point, because she's like, when she looks at people getting powers, she thinks of like a Supergirl or Superman using them for good, even a Flash. But there are plenty of bad metahumans as well. So the same thing can apply with people with powers. You know, because like but I guess that's her whole point. But like, getting back to it, it's kind of like, yeah, you can't make a decision like that. How do you regulate something like that? You can't really do it. So, but it seems like Lena is going forward with it, because the Heron she was using testing on hearts that had cancer. She was trying to cure cancer. Turns out One Heart in particular became invincible from it, which does beg the question. I'm curious to see what that does to Nia, like when she does eventually get, like, what exactly her powers are going to be. You know what's actually kind of interesting too? We actually got to see Brainy fight for the first time. Like, he never fought at all last season, but now you get to see him fight, and he's looking all badass. He literally didn't even have to, like, lift a hand, and he's making them kind of like the Children of Liberty take themselves out. It's like, yo, that's pretty badass, your fighting style like that. That's so cool. Because basically, I guess he knows just the angles to kind of turn, and like, obviously he's doing quick math in his head, so he knows just like how to kind of move around. It's you know, I don't know how to properly pronounce it. It's just like basically doing these large calculations, knowing exactly how everything's going to go, the probability of probably someone striking in this exact way, and the angle, blah, 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 blah. Doing a lot of crazy math in his head, which is pretty impressive. And then the final blow, the dude's running towards him and smacks into a wall. And then, like, Brainy, like, is standing on the wall like that. I was like, that's so dope. And he just comes down and walks on the wall and kind of walks away victorious. I was like, that's badass. I also love the conversation of him showing up, and he's like, oh yeah, you know, at Kara's place, and he was like, oh yeah, I brought flowers because I was told it's kind of bad to kind of show up without anything, and she's like, oh, your mom must have raised you right. He was like, she absolutely did not. I was like, right, you are Brainiac 5, so what about your predecessors? Were they evil? Because I don't really know that much about Brainy besides this. Like, my only other experience with him, once again, is kind of Smallville. That's like the only thing. And he's like probably like the first of his kind to not be villains. I mean, because they all stem from Brainiac, who is like one of Superman's greatest villains. So that's the whole thing. So I'm curious on some level, is that what that's kind of hinting at? Like, oh, his mom raised him up to be a villain because, like, oh, you're a Brainiac, you're above humans, you're above every other species in existence, like, you're a superior being, you're supposed to act like that. So I'm guessing that might have played a role. I also love the fact is that Alex is like, oh yeah, the Colonel Haley said we can't investigate anymore. It was even BS. She's even telling Supergirl, like, oh yeah, handling regular mugging we're the DEO, we don't handle that. It's like, yeah, but this threat, it's like, who cares? They're nothing. It's like, they're just humans. But it's like, I think you're kind of forgetting the fact is humans have been an issue in the show before. Are we forgetting Cadmus? It's like with the right backing, any group can be bad. You know, I think you're kind of forgetting that. I think you're also forgetting it was actually a human that actually helped the Dark Kryptonians and the World Destroyers kind of get to where they were. You can't forget about that. A human element played a part in that. So that's something that can't be forgotten, that humans play their own role in causing a lot of problems. But I guess it's like, oh, we're the DEO, we handle bigger issues and stuff like that. We're this huge government agency and stuff like that. But it's also weird that you're kind of dictating Supergirl. It's like, oh, do what you... It's like, I guess you work with us long enough. Like, the thing is, Supergirl doesn't work for the DEO. She works with the DEO. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's like, I guess if they had the opportunity, that's kind of why Clark never really worked with the DEO like that, just because for him it's probably like just too many guidelines. Like, it's like me wanting to save people's lives, I have to take orders to do, you know, it's that whole thing, which I'm sure that in itself is kind of an issue too, because it's like, you're a god amongst men walking around free reign, no one can reign you in or control you. That's the issue. But maybe everyone's got the perspective of like, because Supergirl works with the DEO, you're going to follow our rules so we can rein you in, keep you under control. So that was just kind of interesting. I also love that Colonel Haley was like chewing them out and then was kind of like, oh yeah, by the way, I made some sweet potato pie. It's in there if you want some. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm like, that's so weird. Even they were looking at each other like, yeah, she really thinks we're going to eat her sweet potato pie? Like, yeah, right. And then, like, walks out Brainy eating it. I'm like, that's so good. Also, Brainy being like, Alex is like, oh, we're not allowed to investigate. Wink. He's like, okay, I guess well, I won't investigate. He's like, no more misconceptions between you. I 100% understand you want me to stop. It's like, no, I winked at you, meaning I want you to keep doing it. It's like, oh, I will keep investigating. And he's singing it loud. She's like, shh. And he's just being so terrible at it. I even love the excuse he gives later on. I was so distracted by your sweet potato pie that I decided I wanted to make some of my own, and I do apologize for being so distracted by that, Colonel Haley. I love that being his excuse and stuff like that. Him being terrible at keeping a secret. But along with that situation, we had Manchester Black kind of going obviously more extreme routes, because we even see him getting violent, which like last episode he was very... Was that last episode or was that... I know that was last episode, I think. But he was more on a pacifist. Like, he didn't even hit people. This ain't even just about guns. He didn't, like, fight like that. He kind of did what Brady did without kind of using themselves against themselves. So, that, but now he's full-on fighting. And then kind of torturing that cop in particular, trying to get information, which is like, whoa. I mean, he's willing to cross whatever line he needs to handle this situation. I mean, because for him, the main motivation behind this is like, yeah, helping out other people, but his main motivation is like, I want revenge. I want Agent Liberty to die because this has all happened to him. I mean, to be fair, it also benefits because he's the one that kind of set Fiona on that path. He set this all in motion, but he's also the one that stabbed her in the first place and hooked her up to the machine. So it's like, he's definitely culpable for all of that. So we see Manchester's situation in that. It's really kind of interesting because it's like, it seems like he's playing even more the vigilante route than even Jimmy, because even Jimmy has lines he won't cross, but we see Manchester has lines he will cross just because he's like, I'm sorry, Fee, but I got to do this my own way. I'm guessing that's kind of who, I mean, he already kind of made it seem, he was like, yeah, I was a hooligan before I met up with Fiona, so she kind of changed his perspective, gave him a different outlook and way of handling things, but now I guess he's going back to the way he was before, at the very least going down a darker route, because we see he shoots those people, and Tom talks about it later on. It's like, yeah, the people he was supposed to meet up with was that group, and because he didn't meet up with them, they've gone missing and stuff. So I'm guessing Manchester hid the bodies after he killed all of them, which is like, ugh, the fact is he's killing people. Like I said, he's definitely going down a much darker route. Like we're getting quite a super dark vigilante in this regard. I guess we're going almost like some early Arrow type of business, which is kind of interesting. So I'm interested to see where that kind of all goes, because it seems like he's about to even kill the cop he's got in his bathroom that he was torturing for information. So, but also along these same lines, we kind of go back to the original thing of Lena and Jimmy, because we definitely see a big divide between them, because Jimmy's like, well, no, I'm going to make this decision. This isn't about me being your boyfriend. I'm deciding not to take that interview because, for one, you did it behind my back and suggesting I should do that. And it's like, I'm trying to do this. So you don't kind of like, as the one to kind of dictating this situation, I'm going to do what I want to do. You, as my girlfriend, I have everything I was saying it. And then Lena's like, okay, as your boss, you're going to that damn interview. I was like, yo! I was like, yeah, things about to get ugly in this situation. But Kara went, which, hey, Ben kind of held his own, but also Kara did too. I think Kara made some good, valid points, but he kind of twisted the perspective of like, yeah, look at human history, look at Thanksgiving for us, where Thanksgiving led to some very terrible stuff. It's like, who's to say 100 years from now, aliens won't have their own Thanksgiving? So, like I said, it seemed like it was kind of dead even. They both brought up very good points. I'm bringing that, I'm saying that, but like, in all honesty, I don't care about Ben's points. It's like, obviously, you side with Kara 100%, but still. The problem is there's a lot of people that still side with Ben. Even turns out later on that he's potentially getting his own show. It's also interesting and kind of messed up in the sense that it's kind of like, yeah, even with all this chaos he's causing, he still has time to buy food and spend time with his family and stuff like that. It just seems messed up on some level, you know? I mean, I guess it's kind of going back to like that Damien Dark situation. It's kind of messed up that you have a wife and child. I mean, a child at the very least when everything was kind of said and done. But it's kind of like, it's weird that you have a normal life to a certain extent. It just, you're a bad guy. But I guess that's kind of feeding into the whole point of like, oh, Ben's just a regular guy mounting this whole situation. So. But things between Lena and Jimmy definitely hit an all-time low when it's like, oh yeah, also, you're thinking, like, I'm trying to look out for you. That whole DA situation, I made it go away. He's like, so you lied to me? She's like, I will cross any line because I love you. And Jimmy's like, you think that's love? Which is like, it's half and half, because it's like, willing to do whatever it is for a person. It's like, yeah, you know, that is love. But I guess it's like willing to do something so diabolical is like manipulating people, controlling them, kind of like that. Because I'm sure in his mind it's kind of like, that's you pushing on that Luther angle, like, you know, kind of going down that route. And losing Jimmy might kind of set Lena down that path. Like, she has hints at, because you know that's where she's going to end up. That's the sad part. It's like that thing of like, no matter where you start off, like, destiny's going to find a way to turn you into who you're supposed to be. It's like, you're a Luther. That Luther side of you is going to take over, and you just know it is. You know, it's kind of like Smallville, where it's just kind of like, it's inevitable. You're going to become the villain in this situation, and there's going to be bad blood between you and Kara, especially when you find out that she's been lying to you this entire time. Your best friend has been lying to you about who she is, and also the fact of the matter is, you already kind of have issues with Supergirl that hasn't 100% healed since last season. It's still manageable, but it's still not where it was before, so. And like I said, I'm sure that would be a contributing factor, which her mom is super delighted and waiting for that opportunity to go down. So there's that. But at the same time, you get where Lena's coming from. It's like, I love you. I would do anything to help you. But it's like, yeah, just don't let it be anything. Do a lot. Stay by my side. Respect my wishes of wanting to handle things on my own. But it's like, I don't know. Like I said, also the fact is the way she kind of went around it, it's kind of like, I'm sure Jimmy believes in how everything works, and it's just kind of wrong that you just kind of circumvent everything and kind of get what you want. Yeah, it's helping me. You're not doing it for selfish reasons, but at the same time, it's like, you love me and stuff like that, so isn't it still selfish reasons? Because it's more so because your love for me makes it so you want to do it, so it's not for the most virtuous of reasons. Like I said, that's just me splitting hairs, because it is all for Jimmy, so... It's a complicated situation. Because she is so willing to try and protect Jimmy, that's why she's pushing forward with this Harrenhal situation, just because it's like she wants to make sure that the man that she loves is protected and on even playing fields so that he can protect himself and never be in danger. I also love that this episode, I guess that family aren't really aliens. I guess only their pet is, Spike, who turns out to actually be kind of like a dragon of some sort. Kara literally fights a dragon. That's pretty dope. And Spike's actually a really cool guy. I love Kara petting him and everything, getting him to calm down. It's like, oh, that's sweet. It's also messed up, and it's like, the fact is the Agents of Liberty are literally tagging houses. It's like, you don't see how messed up that is? It's like, I kind of feel like, you don't see anything wrong with that. It's just attacking people, but I guess for them it's like, oh, these roaches and stuff like that. Even when Jimmy was talking to Tom, he's like, yo, dude, I'd rather prefer you didn't use that term around me. It's like looking at aliens like that. They're here just trying to live normal lives too. They have families of their own. Like, you're worried about your family. They have families of their own too. It's like you want to hold aliens responsible for what some other aliens have done. It's like, the fact of the matter is, once again, are we forget the fact of the matter is humans have been villains too. Superman, great example, has had quite a few human enemies. We've even gotten introduced to some of them. Like, and the fact is, Toyman, which Toyman was already established as a Superman villain in this world, right? Besides just being Wynn's dad. Like, I can't remember if he was just already dealt with by Superman or not, or whether or not, I don't know. You know what I mean? Or whether he was just kind of like a well-known killer that was caught by the police. I feel like they might have brought that up about Superman. Like, that was brought up in season 1, wasn't it? His whole dad situation. Maybe that was season 2. I could have sworn it was season 1. Either way, nevertheless. So there's that. Lex Luthor being kind of the maniacal person he is, but I guess maybe that kind of is okay considering the fact is everyone's kind of on their anti-alien thing, but do you justify what Lex Luthor's kind of done in the past? It's like, kind of choose your side wisely, but I guess it's like because people are so angry and brainwashed. Also, it's kind of super messed up. Because I was wondering about the whole dog barking thing. Kara had talked about it because she was like, oh yeah, dogs don't like her. And it's like, oh yeah, because it knew she was an alien. So it ran from her. So that's not what she was talking about, but still. And it's kind of like, oh, at least lizards like me. So that's cool. But yeah, getting dogs to be able to sniff out aliens, that's messed up. So things are definitely escalating. Luckily, they were able to kind of stop everything before anything really crazy happened. I mean, to be fair, Manchester ended up killing some, like I said earlier, but still. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this all ends up progressing. Once again, I'm very interested to find out what Nia's whole situation is. What is it and why she lie about it? Now that Kara and them know about that. But how this situation is going to escalate more. Ben's already got his own show. And it's like he's going to be reaching people on 2 different fronts. One is Ben, so he's going to be able to spread his propaganda. Probably he won't go as hard as he is as Agent Liberty. He might, but, that's definitely doubling down on both fronts, so that's definitely going to help him in the long run. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how things progress in the next episode. And now moving on to this week's episode of The Walking Dead. A lot of interesting things. Basically, we learned a little bit more about the new group that ended up coming to Alexandria. You even have Sadiq kind of being happy about it because he's like, oh yeah, the fact is Michonne changed her mind. He's happy about that. But he wishes that she would have let them stay in Alexandria, which is it's not 100% know what went down. Because apparently it seems like the main reason why, because it seems like the communities kind of fell apart, which is they were coming together because of Rick, but I guess after Rick's death, just everything fell apart for different reasons. Because it turns out Michonne's main reason for not wanting to go to Hilltop was because of Maggie. because she was like, yeah, who knows how Mag is going to react in that time. The last time we saw each other, y'all were on decent terms, so it's like something went down after that whole Rick thing that eventually led to them not being on good terms. I guess that's what led to the divide where it's like, like I said, I guess it's because Rick was the only one that was continuing to fight for Carl's dream of bringing everyone together, and I guess Michonne kept it up a while, up to a certain extent. Because what's interesting is, we also learned that when you look at it, Daryl's got a whole bunch of scars on his back. One in particular is an X in the lower left side of his back, exactly like Michonne. Do you think that has something to do with Maggie? I don't know, like, what the bad blood actually is between them, what actually went wrong in that time skip to lead to things being what they are. To the point, like Michonne saying, like, I don't know how Maggie will react when she sees me. And just like the fact is, like I said, the communities just aren't together, even though they, but like, I guess you could make the argument the Grimes were kind of the last key keeping them together. First it was Carl, you know, Rick living out Carl's dream, and among Rick's, you know, going, it kind of changed everything. But we'll just kind of have to wait to kind of learn a little bit more about that. But we do learn more, like I said, more about the strangers, especially Magnus. Basically, the person that was in their group, was it like, to do with the ugly shirts that Magnus initially hated but then eventually loved. It seems like she had feelings for him, but they lost him, and that's kind of been the hardest thing, not just for her, but it seems like it affected the entire group because they were all pretty much tied to this dude, so losing him was kind of a big point for them. Then there's also the whole thing about the Stradivarius and everything, and I thought that was kind of an interesting conversation. What's his name, Luke? So I know that actor seems so familiar, and I just can't remember what I know him from. But I've definitely seen him and stuff before. But nevertheless, for him, it's kind of like, oh, what's the difference? Like, you know how we as Homo sapiens defeated the Neanderthals, even though they were bigger, stronger than us? It's because we came together. Essentially, we we gathered around the fire, we told stories. That's how we beat. Because he found that out because, like, in a cave, people found, like, an old instrument, and like a flute in particular. And it's like, that's how we beat them. Like, even with this whole them having the advantage over us, we were able to come together, which I guess is very reflective of their current situation. It's like, yes, the walkers outnumber us and stuff like that, these great numbers, but the fact of the matter is, when we come together and just gather around, that's kind of our greatest strength, is our connection with each other, building things. And he's like, that's going to be at the heart of building any community, which even have Michonne, like, even after everything you've done, everything you've seen, every witness, you still believe that's true, which I guess for her, it's kind of like, it's probably reminiscent about, you know, because Sadiq brings it up later on. I'm guessing that's reminiscent about what Carl wanted, what Rick was trying to get across, of bringing communities together. And even Sadiq's like, you know, what about your promise to Carl? Which he's like, you know why I can't really keep that. That is a complicated situation, which we didn't even dive into that. But it's like, why is that complicated? Why is that not possible? Even after finding out about Maggie being gone, it still wasn't possible. Because, like, the whole fair situation is something Hilltop's a part of, the Kingdom is a part of. Is that something that was handled after Maggie left, or what? Because it turns out Maggie went with Georgie because she's building another community. She took Herschel with her. It's like, what made her finally decide to leave? Because I was thinking, like, oh, maybe Maggie left early on after the whole, like, not killing Negan thing. Maybe it kind of made her finally move on, and she let go of her vengeance, or what? Like, that's the driving thing of, like, what went down in that time skip that changed everything for everyone, you know? That's the big question. We ended up seeing most of the group kind of in action. Magnus is sick with those damn knives. Connie and, is it Kelly, are good with fucking slingshots. Didn't expect that to be weaponry, but that's pretty dope. And Mika's good with bow and arrow, and it's like, yo, that like shot knocking down that roofing, that overhang, and it just like collapsing on. I was like, yo, one arrow, that was pretty dope. But them kind of being skilled like that, so it's like, I mean, they didn't survive this far for nothing. But I think Michonne could really relate to Magnus too, because like, you know, Mika was like, oh, take some clothes or something to remember him by. But it's like, let's not forget, like, Michonne having clothes of Rick's to smell, so she knows that exact situation. And I guess it seems like Mika is more so the leader, you know. She understands that more so than anybody, kind of having to push forward as the leader. You know, when your people are in pain, you feel that pain, you know. So I don't know, it was just kind of an interesting little dive into that group, kind of learning more about them, especially because like Michonne was like, yeah, I'm not going the rest of the way, which obviously we know why now, but it's like, oh, you want your weapons back? Yeah, you're not getting your weapons back, because Michonne still doesn't 100% trust him. To be fair, Magnus didn't give him reason to. To be fair, she later on kind of gave him a reason to. I mean, that's kind of why Michonne's doing this in the first place, but it's kind of like, yeah, her good graces only go so far, you know, so... We have Jesus and Aaron, because apparently Jesus has been training Aaron, and I was like, yo, look at Aaron. Like, I ain't never seen Aaron in top form like that. It's like, yo, he's pretty good at the hand-to-hand and everything, handling that situation pretty well. I was like, yo, keeping up with Jesus pretty well, which we also found out Jesus is head of Hilltop. Tara's kind of like the second in command. I guess she's kind of like, Jesus is like the new Maggie, and I guess Tara's kind of like the new Jesus. Kind of, you know, Jesus is kind of being re-elected, even though, like, he's like, yeah, it's pretty hard to worry about being re-elected when literally no one goes against you because he's been voted in. Apparently, it was a promise he made to Maggie to take over, but for him, it's only temporary because I guess he just doesn't feel like he deserves this spot. He's like, I don't deserve to be the leader of this. This is Maggie's position, but it's like, I guess she wasn't handling things the right way. Once again, we don't 100% know what exactly went down, but it seems like he's kind of running from his responsibilities to a certain extent, because it's like, because even Michonne kind of had to step up for Alexandria because Rick was working on the bridge and stuff, but I think even more so now she has to, and I don't know, you know, just after everything she's lost, I think she just closed her heart off. Maybe she has her own specific reasons, but not wanting to join with this fair situation. Even Aaron was like, yeah, she hasn't changed her mind. All the while, there's the whole situation with Daryl, Henry, and Carol. We end up learning about Daryl. Like, initially, he was out there because, like, no one ever found Rick's body. It's like, in this entire time, no body's ever been found. So maybe he stayed out there because hoping to try and find something. But also, it became nice. The quiet, you know, eventually it just felt better being out there, because I guess for him, he just didn't want to be around people. Maybe just being around people was just a reminder of what he did. Maybe in some way, maybe Daryl was kind of punishing himself by putting himself in solitude. Granted, he has the dog with him, which I love that the dog is called Dog because he hasn't even bothered to give it a name yet. So, but Carol's plan was basically to leave Henry in his care, because it's like, yeah, Henry's an idealist like his dad Ezekiel, but it's like, yeah, that's fine and dandy, which is a great thing. It's what I love about them, but it's like he needs Daryl there to kind of be the one to kind of ground him, essentially. Kind of bring him back into reality, kind of realize and see things as they are, and not have this like very optimistic view, kind of look at things from a realistic point of view. And it was just kind of an interesting thing because it seems like even like a lot of the scars Daryl has, he doesn't want to talk about, because even Henry asks about it, but Daryl never really gives an answer about it. And maybe Carol knows more about those scars. Maybe they're scars he's gotten over the course of the series, but it seems like most of those, the fact is they make such a point. Definitely the X one, but it seems like they made a point to point out the other ones too, so the other ones might be fresher too. It might have been a situation where he was captured and tortured. Maybe the same thing for Michonne, because like Michonne didn't have a whole lot. She only had the one, I think. Could be wrong. It's a very specific wound, so it's like, is it from like being stabbed, like, or was it like something cut from them or something, you know? Doesn't look like a regular incision, so that's why I kind of feel like that can't be the case. So, but I think what ended up changing Daryl's mind about going was because Henry was like, you know, my mom, you're like my mom's best friend. She talks about you, that you've always had her back, and she's worried about you. You can tell that, right? And he's like, well, she knows where to find me. It's like, she shouldn't have to. He's like, you know, if I go with you, you really want me looking over your shoulder all the time? He's like, it's not even about that. Because for him, what matters most is the fact is it's important to his mom. I mean, it's even badass. Like, she tries to pretend like everything's okay, but when Daryl and Henry had each other's back, like, she was nearby with a bow ready to strike, but she kind of pretends like that didn't happen, because it's like, no, they kind of had their bonding moment, so I guess she didn't want to kind of take away from that in that sense. But you can tell when Daryl was getting ready and stuff like that, you see a big smile across Carol's face of like everything's coming together, because for one, she doesn't want Daryl out there alone all on his own, even with the dog. She doesn't want that, and plus she kind of gets what she wants in a sense too. So, but when Daryl shows up, he's going out with Aaron and Jesus to go track down Eugene, which I'll kind of get to that in a second. But what's also interesting is the fact is, we never found out how Sadiq knew, but he knew about Maggie being gone. It's something that, I guess because the groups have been disconnected from each other, like, of course, Michonne wouldn't know that. I'd assume I guess because like Alexandria probably like doesn't communicate with any of the other two groups. Once again, we still don't know what about Oceanside because that hasn't been brought up. The only one that's kind of been brought. I mean, we know that basically we saw the last of the sanctuary kind of burned up last episode by Carol. So what about? Well, not all of them because we know that some stayed behind, but the main ones that were full on kind of wanting to do their own thing, they're all pretty much wiped out. But any survivors are probably like stuck with one particular group, maybe Alexandria. I don't know. It might have something to do with Oceanside being the one killing all the people from the sanctuary. Maybe that kind of had something to do with it. I mean, it was like specifically people from Simon's group that were killed, but that still might have left a bad mark if that ended up being brought up to the case. I have no idea. But I'm assuming Siddiq was talking to Aaron and Jesus. Like I said, it seems like probably the kingdom was good with both sides, and Alexandria might have only been good with the kingdom, essentially. Also, interesting enough, C. Thomas Howell is in this episode, which is like, yo, seeing you in everything. What's also interesting, I was like, oh, I expect you to be like a main character. You're just like one of the people at Hilltop. It's like, nah, that can't be. Just because C. Thomas Howell is one of those actors, it's just, I feel like you're going to get him to play a specific role, so I'm kind of like, wait for it to turn around and be like, oh yeah, there's more to it than that. But maybe not. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. What I also thought was kind of interesting was that Connie ended up hearing something in the woods, or rather seeing something, but then she was kind of like, it's nothing. And it's like, maybe that has to deal with Rosita's whole situation of like, we heard voices being like, find the other one, find her. So it's like whispers, which, spoilers, I still don't know what it is, but I have been seeing that name pop up on like, you know, just because of the stuff I watch on YouTube, there's going to be stuff related to comic books and stuff like that. And it was something like, I was like, ooh, like the Whisper. Like this, I think these are the main antagonists that people are like, oh yeah, I thought the group that they're meeting with, this group that Michonne and the others met, I thought they were connected to it. Maybe they are, but I think the Whispers is specifically this group that we're hearing the Whispers. It's like what their whole deal is, I don't know. Like somehow Rosie... Because I thought I heard whispering at the end of the other episode, and I was like, what is that all about? And it seems like maybe whoever this group is, maybe they blend in with walkers, or maybe they're out in the woods too. So Rosita and Eugene just happen to enter their territory potentially, or I don't know. Another interesting thing is the fact is that we do have Maggie not being there. That was something I was seeing too, because I was like, I saw some videos. I didn't watch them, but I just saw some stuff being like, oh, is this Maggie's exit too? And it's like, oh, that never crossed my mind. I was like, I mean, obviously everything I saw, I mean, to be fair, I haven't seen a lot of promotion with you. It's just like the original trailers that were dropped. And it's like, oh yeah, Andrew Lincoln leaving the show, so there's that. Plus there's other stuff I've heard recently popping up in like my recommendeds and stuff like that. I haven't watched it, so I won't really comment on it, just some titles and stuff like that, but I'll kind of leave it at that. You know, if you want to look more into it, you can. Like there's some like Walking Dead news. Basically movie stuff has come up, and what stuff has come up about that, a little bit I've seen, you can look into yourself. I really won't comment because I don't know what that whole thing is going to be. But like, I didn't remember anything about Lauren Cohen, the actress who plays Maggie, leaving the show either, because like the biggest focus was like Andrew Lincoln was. So that's why I'm kind of getting the feeling like, yeah, she's, because obviously they make it like everyone think he's dead, which, you know, like think Rick is dead, which I think's going to turn into something else. Like even though it's supposed to be his final episode and stuff like that, that's why I still kind of feel like, I don't know. Everything else, like everyone and everything else labeled it as his final episode, but I still kind of feel like there's room for him. It's a whole thing that I'm just not going to get into, but I'm just curious what that ends up potentially growing into, especially because he left off with Anne. But there's also the whole situation of Maggie, because it's like, especially because they made a point to be like, oh yeah, she's off with Georgie's group, which is like, okay, because we still haven't really had Georgie really pop up into the story. Like Georgie played a part in like season 8, and that's about it. But still, like we don't know what else has really come of that, because Georgie's always been kind of a distant element. So if that's going to circle back into the story in some shape or form, I'm curious how, because like the only experience we have is like Georgie, she had like what, a few people with her when she first pops up, and it's like beyond that we don't really know what her community is like, what she's really building. But I'm sure Maggie will circle back around at some point potentially and finally find out what happened to her in this time skip. Potentially, maybe, I don't know. I also love the fact is that Henry's kind of like, oh yeah, you know, it's been a while since Enid saw me, I'm taller and everything now, you know, so, and then like you have Carol being like, oh, that's adorable. He's like, stop, Mom, it's not. Unless Enid likes Adorable, and it's like, dude, that's so cute, dude, that you're trying so hard like that. I thought that was kind of pretty nice. But yeah, I'm definitely interested to see where everything takes us next episode with potentially whatever this Whisper group is. Like I said, I don't know much about them, but we're definitely heavily being introduced to them. But that's what I'm wondering, like, because I was like, is that coming from the Walkers? Like, that's what I'm wondering. Are they walking amongst the Walkers, or are they just in the woods naturally? That's the big question. Because even Daryl himself was like, yeah, there's actually been a lot more Walkers lately, which I'm like, oh, that might be a thing. I don't know. And also about this group that they're bringing to, that Michonne is bringing to Hilltop. Are they good? Like, it seemed like they're okay people, but I mean, that's the thing. You can't really tell with anybody, like, what people's true intentions are. They seem like they're okay, but maybe they're not. But I'm also curious, like, what's going to happen with, like, all these groups and stuff. Like, I mean, like, obviously we have so many people from different groups there, because you also have Carol and Henry from the Kingdom there, while you also have Michonne and, you know, people from Alexandria there. And so it begs the question, like, are things going to be in the talks under all of that? Like, you know, that's why I'm interested to see what the next episode has in store for us with all of that, you know. Maybe get more context as to why things are as divided as they are. Like I said, it adds this little interesting mystery element to it, like trying to piece it together. Like, you don't have enough clues to really understand it all, but it seems like there's a lot of hints and kind of winks and nods to potential stuff being the reason why. Like, for example, it seems like Maggie is a key reason as to why things kind of fell apart. But like I said, we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time with me, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.